If you're a filmmaker, an invaluable tool is the Animatic. This is the part of the process where you take your storyboards and you lay it into an editing timeline so you can start to see the pacing of these shots come to life. Now, you can use this for live action, absolutely, but it is especially important when it comes to any form of animation, right? Because you want to see how long things take. But it begs the question, how do you decide in this stage of it, because you're just using one frame representative of an entire shot, how do you do that in terms of the timing? How do you know? Well, there's a couple of ways. Number one, you want to familiarize yourself as much with the script as possible. And I say that because you want to know, okay, is this scene meant to be emotional, fast-paced? What? Now, even within a scene, that can change, right? Something can start off slow and turn into an argument and become a little bit faster paced. So the more you know the script, the more you know of like, okay, what's its natural rhythm kind of dictating? And that'll help you to keep in mind what the larger picture is. Anytime there's a dialogue scene, that's perfect because you can record scratch audio. So whether yourself, a producer, the editor, a production assistant, whoever, just grab somebody, we're not going for a performance, we're just going for slight timing. Record that, throw it in the timeline, and that'll give you the timing. So for example, as you can see in mine, here I have 2 lines of dialogue that I've cut, and it gives me the rough timing, right? It'll change eventually based on the actual performances of the actor, but at least this gives me a sense of how long those shots are. So for dialogue, that's great. However, what about for non-dialogue? Well, a good rule of thumb there is, okay, what's the physical action, and really think about, how that times itself. And I'll talk about more specifics of how you can really know, but that's about it. Allow me to take a step back and give you some basic guidelines for timing. So number one, as a rule of thumb, when you're getting a reaction shot of a person, right? So it's not the dialogue, it's a reaction shot, let's say, to something that's said. A good rule of thumb is 1 to 2 seconds, okay? So we can absorb what the character is thinking. Like, if we're going to cut to this, there must be a reason. So what are they angry? Are they upset? Are they laughing? Like, what is it, right? So we have that. If it's fast action, then generally you're going to want anywhere between, if it's a 24 frame per second timeline, then 6 frames to 12 frames, right? So that's about 1/4 to 1/2 of a second. So yeah, that can be pretty fast, but if it's an action scene, you're going to want that. What about establishing shots? Well, these are shots like if we're establishing that this is, a city, or we're coming to this house and stuff like that. Part of it will depend, what you're going for. For example, in a horror movie, an establishing shot tends to linger a little bit longer. In sort of more faster-paced espionage movies, like let's say if it was in Mission Impossible, it'd be a little bit quicker. So I would say 2 to 4 seconds, roughly, depending on what it is for an establishing shot. And so, yeah, that's just kind of rough general, framing in terms of those shots. Now, as far as, the stuff that, is a little bit more difficult to kind of know, right? Excuse me, because it's physical. And time yourself doing it, Try it out and get, okay, like me picking up a glass of water, how long is that? You can even film yourself. Or me getting up and walking to the other end of the room. How long would that take? So translate that into frames, once you know how long these things take, you can go ahead and do that. But it is, it's something to be considered. Now also it depends on, again, do it based on like, if it's a scene that's a little bit exaggerated, then you might have to like go a little bit faster, right? Like if we were filming The Mask, you know, and when Jim Carrey has on the mask, you know, there's a heightened sense of reality, so the timing's different than, you know, if I was just walking across the room versus The Mask. So consider those things. Also, you know, I would look at similar enough shots or scenes from movies, you know, and that'll give you a sense of the timing. Like there's often times where I'll literally just like watch something and be like, okay, what's the timing here, you know? And I try to mimic that in terms of the shots, right? You know, I think also too, just the more you edit, the more you know the pace of shots and can really work backwards, because you already know how to, you know, get to the final product, and so you can translate that and reverse engineer it for creating the shots themselves. Some specific ones that I was able to look up in terms of animation benchmarks. So a punch is generally 6 to 8 frames. Head turns are anywhere between 10 to 14 frames. Jumps, the anticipation of a jump can be 6 to 10 frames. The fall and impact, 12 to 24. Yeah, so that's you know, another way to sort of look at it. Also, if you're looking at my timeline here, I've got also right now music. So I've got a very bare bones timeline where I have the dialogue, the scratch audio recorded, as well as music. And eventually what I would love to do is fill this out with like rough sound effects and stuff like that to really bring it further to life. But and that'll give me a greater sense of the timing as well, right? But for now, this between the music and so forth, it's giving me its own kind of pace. And then the main thing is you'll start to watch it and you'll start to know, okay, you know, does it feel too long? Does it feel too short? Now, the big thing about it is, as you're starting off, you might have this tendency that because you're ingesting in one frame of it, you might be able to absorb it right away, and it's like, oh, I might need to trim it. Remember, you have to keep in the context of like, what is this frame actually representing? So rather than just like, oh, I might be able to see it and register everything, like, great, we can cut to the next shot. No. So you have this sort of internal logic and pacing to it all. As I said, you will start to develop the more that you work on these sorts of things. And again, a great way that I've sort of reverse engineered it is where I'll lay in the timeline and see kind of how it is, and then I'll record myself doing those same actions, and I'll see how close I came to guessing in terms of the storyboard versus what I filmed myself in live action, you know, as a frame of reference, just to like compare and contrast. And most times I'm actually pretty darn close. So, you know, it comes with time, but I just want to allow you an entry point into how to think about these things. I'm sure there's other methods for sure. In fact, I would encourage you to, you know, comment down below with any ways that you've approached animatics. And then also, if you have any questions, by all means, ask away. This was meant to be kind of like an introduction to thinking about it, how to time it, and so forth. But again, you know, there's all kinds of methods, and ultimately, whatever works best for you is the way to do it. So I hope this little introduction has helped, and I hope to see you next time.